everybody. You're back with the Chosen Con. Today in the studio, we have the lovely Jessie Kaur. So, Jessie Kaur, you can say hi to the audience.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today.
No, it was a pleasure. We got to unpack a lot of different things today. And I really enjoyed that, right?
Right.
We talked about your childhood, where you came. Well, actually, we talked about going back before that, your grandfather.
Yep.
When did he come to Canada?
I think it was 1907.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact date, though. I'd have to check back with my mom and dad, but
Yeah.
Around that time frame.
And you told me something interesting, too, about your grandfather, about how hard he worked. And
Yes, it was my grandfather and his older brother. So my grandfather's older brother has a street named after him in Kelowna. So that's
What's the street
fascinating.
called again?
Laka, Laka Road.
How many people can say their grandfather has a street
Right?
named after him in Kelowna, too, of all
Right?
places? Yeah.
Around the airport area,
That's
just to give you
fascinating.
some idea of
Yeah.
where he's at.
Okay, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then we talked about your childhood and how you grew up in, it was Kamloops.
Correct.
Right?
You got it this
right.
time.
I got it right.
Yeah,
Thank
good
God.
one.
You grew up in Kamloops,
Yeah.
and what was that like?
It was great. I have a lot of cousins and older siblings. We lived right by a school. It was fantastic on that aspect. But we had touched on, the racism and overt racism that was happening at the time. And it's something that has lived experiences that is now showing up in a lot of the work I do. So in a way, I'm thankful for those occurrences because they're now playing out in different creative projects.
In massive ways. There's something really, really interesting, actually. You were telling me that in Kamloops they had the last last residential school, that closed down.
For sure.
And what was the interesting thing about that for you? It seems like okay, go ahead. You can tell the story.
Sure. So the last residential school, one of the last one was in Kamloops, and it closed in 1996. But when I was in elementary school, at the residential school, there was a track and field meet or whatever, track and field meet that was right outside the residential school on the grassy area, and I remember going into the residential school and using the restroom and being terrified. So I think shortly after that, I had told my parents I no longer want to be participating in track and field. So so I didn't have to do that anymore.
That was a good reason why.
For sure.
I'd be traumatized too. And that was really interesting because now you're spending a lot of time doing unceded territories. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah. So that is something that came about July 1st in alignment with the Canada 150 celebrations. And it's kind of an initiative with apparel to showcase that while Canada 150 is being celebrated, we need to take a moment, or many moments rather, to really highlight the history of the Indigenous people and people of color and non-people of color, how they can be allies and accomplices to ensure that Indigenous people are given the rights they deserve.
Yeah, that's an incredible thing. So that's unceded territories. Definitely check that out. We'll have that link below. And then you were also telling me how you had I think 15 degrees. So so you got enough degrees for the both of us. This is great. Right?
I don't know about 15, but I have a few.
You had a lot. Yeah. What kind of degrees did you have? You were.
So I've done some bachelor degrees. I have a post-bac. I did a couple of diplomas, and then I have my master's in public relations and communications.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm bringing it up though is that you said something that just has still stuck with me. It's you said that it's about exploring. You talk about Steve Jobs.
Sure.
Right.
So early on, I'd kind of run across this convocation speech that he was doing at Harvard. And he talks about his life experiences. And just to kind of shorten it down, one of the things that he highlighted was that he had gone to school and then he decided to drop out. He didn't want to pursue education anymore. And then he took a free class or sat in a class on calligraphy and fonts and font design. And then when he was doing his convocation speech, he said how those certain classes for fonts and calligraphy, how they showed up in his work at Apple.
Yeah.
So that was fascinating for me because it kind of made sense. I have a real array of background and schooling and curiosity in many, many fields. So it's interesting to see how all these experiences now parlay into feasible, tangible projects.
It all adds up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was
The dots get connected.
Yeah,
He's
that
right.
was so cool. Yeah, so that was really cool. I'm gonna watch the convocation speech real soon. Connect the dots, and then like lastly to even end off.
Sure.
Check out the podcast again because we dove into all of this very, very deeply. But the last thing was you told me that you went to Nova Scotia. Was in Nova Scotia, and you were doing your master's there.
For sure.
And you wrote your paper on. It was on. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah, for sure. So one of the papers, I did a few.
Yeah.
One of the papers that kind of really stuck with me was the India Delhi rape. It actually ended up getting published in an academic journal, which was fascinating. But it was about that woman, Jyoti Pandey, and, you know, looking at feminism from a South Asian lens. That was one of the topics that I kind of explored in the paper. But a second one was how social technology mobilized a whole campaign and movement. And that was one of, you know, a few. Before that, it was the Arab Spring that really had created momentum and change in these areas. So that to me was fascinating. That paper kind of had me curious about feminism, about even more about being South Asian, about being a woman, and about campaigns or initiatives that are important to me. So, it bled into Media Waz, it's created Core Project, it's created a few other things that are kind of in the works right now. But it stemmed, that's the underpinning of partly about why I do what I do.
There's another dot.
Another dot, yes. Yeah, totally.
That's incredible. So check out the Core Project, check out Media Waz, and honestly, explore. Like that's one thing that I've really, really taken from Jessie, like so many different things, first of all, but one thing, it's like explore, and you never know how things are going to come back later on in life, right? How that paper really led to the Core Project.
Yeah, and it wasn't that I was intently doing it for that purpose. It was just, that was the path I was in. It kind of piqued my curiosity, went with it, did the work for it, and that's a conversation I constantly have, is that hard work that needs to be involved in these curious pursuits, and then did the work. And then once I got, what I needed out of it, that experience, that creative journey, then it parlayed into many other things.
And it led to Jessie basically giving a speech at the Apple headquarters.
Right?
Steve Jobs.
Look at that.
Again, Steve Jobs comes back.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, thank you for coming on the show. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to have all the links below. And for everybody, again, it's a journey. Right, and as Steve Jobs and as Jessie Kaur, I'm gonna be able to one day quote Jessie Kaur real soon, but it's like we talk a lot about food, and so it's like just make sure you're gonna experiment with different things, and at the end of the day, right, like the beautiful mess that will be is gonna be just our lives. It's not gonna be a beautiful mess. It's just gonna be. It's gonna be, what is it called? Ooey gooey butter chicken.
Yes, ooey gooey butter chicken cheese bread.
That's what it's gonna become.
Yeah.
So thank you all. Peace.
Thank you, Annie.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. Thank you for watching our videos. Your support really means a lot to us. Check out our podcast and honestly check out the other conversations we've been having as well.